Good evening and welcome to today's episode of Boqer School of Government. Boqer School of Government exists to teach sound biblical principles to modern day governance, government, governmental and political systems. A lot of Christians and a lot of people are unaware that Jesus Christ and God is interested in political systems, and we can draw lessons from the life he lived while here on earth. We can also draw lessons from texts from the scriptures, both Old and New Testament, that we can apply to modern day governmental systems. So that's what we do here at Boqer School of Government, answering modern day questions facing the modern day believer. How do I engage the government? What am I supposed to get out of the government? Am I supposed to be in government? If yes, what am I supposed to do there? Without this orientation, it becomes so difficult for Christians to navigate. So today we are continuing with our conversation on the heart of the public servant. And we started this conversation last week. And I will try to do a quick recap of our last week's discussion so that we build on that from today. So we did say that there are two ways in which one can look at public service. There are two distinctive views of public service. The first view of public service is the general view of public service. So under this general view of public service, everyone, regardless of what you do, qualifies as a public servant and is indeed a public servant. The society is viewed as one, and anything anyone does within that society affects the societal balance, affects the societal equilibrium. It might not have the same level of impact. So someone, depending on his level of influence and the position he occupies in the society, may not be able to, for instance, if I cough in my room today, it may not affect Nigeria's economy as much as when President Tinubu coughs. But then that cough I had in my room affects Nigeria one way or the other. This is the general view of public service. So the farmer in this general view sees his full impact, that if he refuses to do his work, that something happens to the society. The bus driver, the keke driver, the Okada rider, name it, all the things you do in the society is your own unique way of contributing to the society. This is the general view. And we quoted a few scriptures during that class to support this, and we will not go into meta details, but then I will encourage each and every one of us who can to revisit that class. Then we consider the second view of public service, which is administrative view of public service. So under this administrative view of public service is indeed viewed as people who are called to use public institutions, government systems, bureaucracy to serve the interest of the state or to serve the interest of the people using organized state structure. So this is your regular public servants, your politicians, your lawmakers, your judges, your regular civil servants, public servants, and all of those. So if you want to look at the administrative view of public service, those people qualify. And because a lot of people here did not participate in the first class, let me take 1 or 2 minutes to actually buttress this point, because these are the foundations on which we will build what we are coming here to discuss today. So under the general view of public service, you will see, for instance, in the Bible, where Romans 12:3-7, where the Bible says, "For by the grace given to me, I say to every one of you, do not think yourself more highly than the others, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith that God has distributed to each of you. For just as each one of us has one body with many parts or many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so we in Christ, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each one of us. So if it is your gift to do this, do. If it is serving, serve. If it is teaching, teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is to give, then give. If it is to lead, lead. If it is to show mercy, show mercy." The same thing was repeated in 1 Peter 4, where the Bible says, "Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very word of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Christ Jesus. So you see that if I am a farmer, for instance, I do so with the grace that the Lord has provided, because there is unique grace, unique gifting He gives to me. Because without that gifting and grace He gives to me, then the society might starve. And is it God's will for people to starve? That's not it. So you see that in each of these, you have that under this. Again, I'm trying to rush this because we laid the foundation really last week. So even after this class, I encourage you, even without participating in that first class, you will still get the substance of what we're discussing today. But then for you to really grasp it, I'll encourage you to find the time to revisit that. And how I'm sharing the links, of course, how you can get each and every one of our subsequent classes. But then if you are on Apple Podcast, if you're on Google Podcast, if you're on also, I think it's not Boomplay, we're not yet on Bookplay, but then we are on Spotify. If you're on any of these platforms, just search for Boqer School of Government. If not, then search for Boqer School of Government on Telegram. You can see our recordings, or you can check us out on Facebook, or you can check us out on Twitter and on YouTube. We post the full recordings of our classes there, so that you can be a part of it even when you're not. So then under this, that we now have agreed that everybody has unique role to play in the society, we now say that how does this society function? Because apart from socialism, where they attempted it and it failed woefully, you don't find people with rosters to say, oh, you Chibike, become a lawyer, you Nkechi, become a farmer, you Wena, become a bricklayer. So nobody takes the roster in any given society to start assigning functions and roles to anybody. But then within any society you see, hardly will you find any need that people within that society do not meet. Hardly will you find any need that people within that society will not meet. So if the need is not there or not in high demand, of course you could struggle to see people who offer that service. But then once the service or the need exists in a society, the society finds its way of producing those people that will meet these needs. Because like I mentioned to you, the society is one under the general public service view. And then each unit of the society, each person contributes their distinct quota to the health of the society. So you ask yourself, since there is no taskmaster who goes around assigning portfolios to people, how then does the people who run this universe find that everyone, or that there is no need in the society, including the bad needs? Because there are societies, if you want people to kill people, you will find killers. They are there. Any need, if you want bricklayers, anything you want is in the society. And yet there is no book, or there is nobody that assigns functions to the society. And so we begin to ask, how do people get assigned to the roles they play in the society? And we found that there are two pathways. One is service-oriented pathway, and then the second is induced pathway. And we spent our time to discuss that last week. And so I'll try to give a quick recap without necessarily going into details. So under induced pathway, you see, because people tend to choose what they do based on material reward and based on material reward and based on the availability of opportunities. So you see that there are intelligent manipulators of destinies or career choices of men. And I'll give you instances. You see, public servants in Canada can sit in Canada, and with carefully designed immigration laws, they can attempt to edit the destinies of thousands of young Nigerians. And so you will, for instance, see a lot of people who are venturing into public health care, who are venturing into adult care, who are venturing into nursing, who are venturing into pharmacy, who are venturing into a health-related field. Not because they are called or they feel attached to that, but because they see that this country's immigration policy favors this kind of thing. And then if you remember that the last two classes we had we talked about societal exploitation, where we said that you can have societal exploitation where the society can choose to exploit people through their immigration laws. Again, I'll refer you to that class. But today, if you're talking about induced career choice, because what people are looking at making is money and just money. And so you will find that if you start intelligently moving money and opportunities around, you can begin to edit the availability of people within any particular niche. I'll give one more instance. If you had met 10 activists in the 1980s and the 1990s, chances are higher that they were human rights activists. Chances are higher that they were human rights activists. Then if you meet 10 activists today, chances are higher that 9 out of 10 of them are climate change enthusiasts. And so you ask yourself, what happened? Is it that there are no human rights violations in this time? Or is it that climate change has so much changed in such a short time than this? No, that's not really what happened. What happened is that civil society funders, people whose responsibility it is to pump in money into the civil society, have decided that climate change is their funding appetite, and they are pumping in a lot of money into climate change. And so you see a lot of people, even people who originally do not have anything to do with climate change, they are now finding ways to bake in climate change into what they do, because this is under the induced career path or under induced service path. Because what they are really looking for is not impact. What they are looking for is opportunities. And so since the opportunities are now in climate change, they will naturally gravitate towards climate change. Another instance is this. When people want to travel, because the opportunities for travel for young Nigerians are limited, and so many countries' immigration policies favor you to come in and have your master's, your first degree, or your PhD. So people are now traveling to do master's, PhD, not because naturally they felt that they needed PhD or master's, especially in this period of academic inflation. But then what they are doing is that this is the immigration policy. And for me to travel, I have to pretend that I'm studying, or at least force myself to study, right? So this is what we call induced career path. But then the second career path is impact. And so under this induced, there are men and women who, because of control to resources, oh, by the way, under the induced career path, there are some people you can't lure with money, but then you can lure them with, for instance, media reportage. And I'll give another instance with the climate change. Because there are a lot of people you can't get with the money, why don't you tell them that they are making impact? And this is not to denigrate the many sciences behind climate change. But then you notice that anything that happens in the society today, if you cough, climate change. If you sneeze, climate change. If it rains, climate change. If it doesn't rain, climate change. And it's been raining since Adam. It's been raining since, like flooding, earthquake. These things our great-great-grandparents experienced flooding. We're not the first generation that will experience flooding. We're not this. We will not be the last. But then everything is now reported under the guise of climate change. And this is not to deny that there are no human impacts to the environment. There are. But then, is it as much as it is purported to be that anything that happens now, if someone dies, they will find a way to. And so under that media bombardment of climate change, one, civil society funders have decided to push resources to it. And it has now become the dominant appetite of civil society funders. Two, it is now the dominant or the favorite appetite of media platforms. That when you look at the media, they are not just satisfied with reporting what happened. They want to explain why it happened. And in trying to explain why it happened, they are always pointing the finger at one, climate. So everybody now, or many people, are gravitating towards that without giving it too much thought, because this is what they keep on hearing repeatedly on the platform. So yes, the media can choose to glamorize any particular field. So when, for instance, they feel that they don't have more lawyers or more engineers, they will start pushing STEM. STEM means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You will start seeing people trying to push STEM to produce more engineers, because the manipulators or the organizers of the human society feel that they need more engineers. And so they will start promoting STEM. Over time, they will now start promoting arts, liberal arts, allow people to choose, to feel free to express themselves. So this is under that system. And this is how the world tends to find balance or tends to find fulfillment to any need. But then there is now another system which we call service-induced career pathways. Because since God is the one that runs the universe, he sometimes, or he always creates with a purpose in mind. So if he's going to create an Obaka Chijioke, for instance, he creates Obaka with an end goal in mind. And I'll read a scripture to show you this. Let's go to Exodus chapter 31, verses 1 to 11. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezalel the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, in wisdom, in understanding, in knowledge, and in all manner of workmanship, to design artistic works, to work in gold, in silver, in bronze, in cutting jewels for setting, in carving wood, and to work in all manner of workmanship. And I indeed have appointed with him Aholiab the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and I have put wisdom in the hearts of all the gifted artisans, that they may make all that I have commanded you, the tabernacle of the meeting, the ark of the testimony, and the mercy seat that is on it, and all the furniture of the tabernacle, the table and its utensils, the pure gold with its utensils, and the laver and its base, the garments of the ministry, the holy garments for Aaron, the priest, and the garments of his sons, to minister as priests, and the anointing oil and sweet incense for the holy place, according to all that I have commanded you that they should do. What is happening here? Now Moses, the servant of God, has gone up in the mountain and stayed for 40 days. And then God told him, you have to build a tabernacle, you have to build this, you have to build that. And when God tells you to build, he gives exact specifications. He even gave them exact specifications as to the kind of perfume Aaron and his sons, the priests, will be wearing, that no other person will be wearing this kind of perfume in Israel. He gave them exact specifications, how to make the perfumes, how to make gold, articles of gold, even the table where they will offer the sacrifices. He gave them the dimension of the table, the curtains in the tabernacle. He gave them the exact specification, the exact height. But then Moses has received this mandate from God, but he's not an artisan. He doesn't know how to work gold. He doesn't know how to work bronze. And the Lord was speaking to him here. You see, I have appointed these men. I have given them special giftings, workmanship. They know how to work gold. They know how to work carpentry. They know how. I am the one that furnished this wisdom in them. Because under the, remember, administrative view of public service, it is expected that the leader or the king hears or is in tune with what God is doing. So he hears, he has a mandate. For instance, the governor has a vision. And this vision is supposed to come from God, or supposed to come from a transcendent being. So they aspire to higher ethos. And so this governor, this president receives a vision. I have a dream. This is where I want to go. But then he may not necessarily possess the day-to-day skills of running. For instance, he will need commissioners of agriculture that can interpret his vision for agriculture and implement. He can interpret his dream for infrastructure. He needs engineers that can interpret it and implement. His education policies, he will need people to interpret and implement. And so this is what God is saying to Moses. I have provided artisans. Everything I have asked you to do on this mountain, you cannot do it alone. Therefore, I have provided men that will do it with you. And I have given them wisdom, understanding, artistry, the skills they will need. I have given it to them. And so it is God who gives people skills. There are more scriptures. We discussed this last week. And so when God wants to create, so he creates everybody with an end goal in mind. And how does he instruct the hearts of men? People tend to begin to gravitate to where God has gifted them. You see it now, because the Bible says that it is the Lord who gives us the power both to will and to do of his good pleasure. There are two things you find there. The power to will. So when someone says, I want to become a doctor, of course, yes, you can want to become a doctor because there are more opportunities there. You can use the other induced career path, or there is something in you that is particularly drawn to this. And if it is God that is willing you towards a particular direction, he creates you with everything you need to service in that area. For instance, if God wants me to be an athlete, both my DNA, my physical build up, my genetic build up, my mental, even my emotions, even my aptitude, my skills, my latent, okay, what you call talents. They may come raw. You may need to, work on yourself to improve them. Yes. But then they are there and they start nudging you towards that. It is intrinsic. So if you are driven under this career path, remember we discussed this last week, it is usually intrinsic. The motivation is internal. It is not even affected by the society. Whether or not that there are opportunities in that field or not, you will still go. Whether it is trending or not, you will still go. Whether it pays or not, you will still, because this is what you are driven to do. It is internal. There is this inner thing in you that knows that this is where you should be. And if you are not there, regardless of how much money you make in the other parts, there is also this thing in you that tells you, oh boy, this is not what I'm supposed to do. But Nigeria don't dare as a day now. Let's just keep going. And so people can tend to pursue that intrinsic thing in the hearts that was placed in there by God from childhood. Or they can choose to pursue money, resources in all of those things. So these are things. So you now ask yourself, who instituted public service? And so it is clearly God that instituted public service. And why did God institute public service? He instituted public service for ease of administration. For ease of administration. God is interested in an orderly society. If you know the way God works, you will find out that the chaos in the world is not at all God's design. And the chaos is as a result of man not aligning with God's design. I'll give you instances. God will not create a fish before he starts looking for water. He will create the water first before creating the sea creatures. He will not create man and start looking for where to plant him. He will create the Garden of Eden first and will then create man. So you see that sequence is a God of order. So when he met the chaos at creation, he through wisdom and power provided order. So he's interested in an orderly society. Interested in an orderly society. And so because of this order, he tends to use laws. By the way, he is the one that created all the laws that govern the universe. So whether you're talking about the laws of gravity, the laws of all of them. So when this person says that this person found this person's first law of motion, you just discovered it. That does not mean that it has not been there. For instance, when people say, oh, that Mungo Park discovered River Niger. Mungo Park, you did not create River Niger. Before they give birth to Mungo Park, people have been living, fishing, dining, dying, doing businesses around the River Niger. Kogi people have always lived there. Onitsha people have always lived there. Our great have always lived at that place. And then someone comes around, says, oh, I have discovered it. Okay, let's assume that nobody was living there, that he was the first that discovered it. That you discovered it does not mean that you put it there. And so when people discover the law of lifts, the law of thermodynamics, they are there because someone put it there. You may have been privileged to discover it through research and work, because the Bible says that it is the glory of God to conceal a matter and then the honor of kings to search it out. The honor of kings to search it out. And so let's go back to our Bible reading, Exodus, for instance, where we see God's administrative view of public service. Exodus chapter 13 to 26. I'm reading from NKJV. And so it was on the next day that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses until evening. So when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, what is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone? And all the people stand before you from morning until evening. And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one and another, and I make known the status of God and his laws. So Moses' father-in-law said to him, the thing that you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out. For this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself. Another translation says you are not able to perform it alone. Listen now to my voice, verse 19, and I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people so that you may bring the difficulties to God, and you shall teach them the statutes and the laws, and show them the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men. We'll come back to this. Such as fear God. Have you seen how you select men for civil service? Able men, one, they must be able. Two, such as fear God. Men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands. Have you seen where they created states? Rulers of hundreds. Have you seen your local governments here? Rulers of 50s. Have you seen your municipals here? Rulers of 10. Have you seen your wards here? And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. Have you now seen where you start having magistrate court, lower court, and then he becomes the Supreme Court? So that the Supreme Court, which is Moses, is not overwhelmed. If somebody says they stole my chicken, this chicken is my own, those matters can be dealt with at that level. But then, when they have exhausted and they are not able to find, they can bring it up to you, so that you are not the only person dispensing judgment, dispensing administration to these people, because you would definitely wear yourself out. Right, so we're continuing with the Bible passage we are reading. And let them judge the people. And 22. And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. If you do this thing and God commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all these people will go to their place in peace. So Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. And Moses chose able men out of all Israel and made them heads over the people. Rulers of thousands, your governors. Rulers of hundreds, your local government chairmen. Rulers of 50s, your councillors. Rulers of your 10, your municipal council, holders. So they judged the people at all times. They had cases they only brought to Moses, the Supreme Court. But every small case, they judged at the High Court, they judged at the High Court of Appeal, they judged at the lower court. If you now go back to Numbers, you will see where God endorsed this. So Numbers 11 verse 6 to 17, 16 to 17. So Moses said to the Lord, so the Lord said to Moses, Numbers 11, 16 to 17, gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tabernacle of the meeting. There they may stand with you. Then I will come down and talk with you there. I will take the spirit that is upon you and will put that same spirit upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you, that you may not bear it alone. Without civil service, imagine a state government without civil service. Imagine a federal government without civil service. And if you had come to our classes, you will know that we have traced that it is God that instituted governments because he wanted to have an orderly society. And usually he has an arrowhead that he speaks to, or that he performs his counsel through. It could be Moses, it could be David, it could be anybody. And that person must have to have a ruling council or a member. So these distinct units, what you now call bureaucracy today, is as a result of God. So the powers that civil servants enjoy is not their powers at all. It is a power that was delegated to them by God. It's a delegated authority. So any civil servant that does not know the origin of civil service or public service may abuse these powers. And so we're getting to the substance of our discussion today. That it was God who instituted public service for his own administrative purposes. And this has been iterated over time, improved upon. But then when you get the core concept of public service, the core concept of your judicial systems, the core concept of your legislative systems, the core concept of your administrative systems, you would find that these are the foundations of it. Remember that we have been discussing that there is this city that man built, and there is the city that God built. So there are civilizations according to the wisdom of man, and there are civilizations according to the wisdom of God. So you can choose any that you want to play on. So we have dealt with general view of public service, administrative view of public service. So under the general view, You can apply yourself using godly means. You can apply yourself using worldly means. The world tries to manipulate or induce people to any particular field through resource allocation and through media manipulation. God directs the hearts of his people towards where they should be through intrinsic and internal witness. And usually he furnishes those people with the gift, the burden, the interest. For instance, even in public service, some people might be interested in education. They want education. Then even some people may be interested in some other thing, in healthcare delivery. So that is assuming that it is intrinsic. And if it is intrinsic, regardless of whether there are money there, there are opportunities there, because it is intrinsic, you are pushing. If you're looking for money, if they throw that money inside the gutter, you will jump in. So we have induced and service-oriented pathways. Now we are at the heart of public service. There are 3 things that affects the heart of a public servant. One, and this is our discussion for today, and we'll do it quickly and round up. The heart of a public servant is affected in 3 distinct ways. One is disconnected reality. 2 is immersive reality. And 3 is damaged heart, or what you call orientation. Disconnected reality, immersive reality, or damaged heart. The devil's gambit is usually to minimize or prevent one from seeing the full impact of their actions. And he does this in 3 distinct ways. The first is to disconnect people from reality. And the second is to immerse people so much so into reality that reality no longer becomes real to them. That reality no longer becomes real to them. So I'm going to call up a graphic example, for instance. Take an armed robber, for example. This armed robber daily stares into a significant part of the consequences of his actions. If we are to go into meta-analysis, the armed robber may not have the liberty of mind to probe the full impact of his work. He might occasionally receive flashes of the horrible things he has done. Perhaps he recalls the faces of his would-be victims begging him to spare their lives before he fatally shoots them. So the armed robber, to a reasonable degree, daily comes in contact with the decisions he takes. So every day he robs people, he sees them crying, he sees them weeping, he is in daily contact with the decisions he takes. But for some civil servant who is disconnected, remember we're discussing disconnected reality, his line of work disconnects him or totally shields him, if not completely, substantially, if not completely shields him from seeing the full impact of their work. I'll give you an instance. So a woman that works with maybe any organization, call maybe the head of Primary Healthcare Development Agency in Abuja, might sit in her office and she can do a fast business and can make 1.2 billion naira, can write it off, sign few memos, write off the money and throws money around, shares with a colleague and calls it fast practice. And she does not know that what she has just done is that with the stroke of a pen, she had written away the life of 1,200 women who would die while giving birth to children across the country, because the essential supplies they need is no longer there. The money has been written away. And so this person is disconnected. He is not in a place where he can see the impact. So he sits in air-conditioned offices in Abuja. So he drives from his Maitama residence to his office, to her office, and back. She's just pushing papers. And she does not see the full name. Now, for you to see that the heart of this person is still good, any day you bring him or her in direct contact with the consequences of her action, you will see that she's still good. Now, if this woman who has stolen 800 million or 1.2 billion from Primary Healthcare Development Agency, if this woman sees a girl struggling during childbirth, she can, from that money she stole, bring out 2 million and give to this woman and say, oh, please take care of your child. Disconnected reality. That's why you have politicians who are philanthropists. You see, I have been driving and I was driving behind a governor of a state I will leave unnamed. He's now an outgone governor. Just right after the bridge, this guy saw a vendor, this Okada rider, there's not Okada, dispatch riders. And the dispatch rider was running against the traffic and the car hit him. And it wasn't even the governor's convoy that hit him. The governor flagged, stopped right in the middle of it and ran to the person, attended to the person, asked him, the guys he was with, to take this guy, injured guy. And the governor did not even care whether there was social media to capture him, whether people, anybody could have captured him and says the governor's convoy killed. It wasn't even the governor that, it was just that as the governor was passing, the thing happened right in front of him. And he asked that they use, if you've seen a governor's convoy before, they usually have ambulance as part of the convoy. He asked that his own personal ambulance takes this person to the hospital. And so once the person was wheeled into his ambulance, the governor continued moving. And so you see that this governor has a heart that is still working. But what he's suffering from is disconnected reality. Now, if he can see you in pain, he can attend to that pain. But because they sit in places where they don't see the people's pain daily, they don't want to attend. So this governor does not know that you may have to provide emergency healthcare services for people, that you may have to provide ambulances at strategic places, that you have to make sure that the emergency department of public healthcare institutions are working well, that you may have to make laws that make it easier. For instance, why would police need a permit why would hospitals need police permits to treat gunshot victims? You can start the treatment, commence the treatment. So what the obnoxious policies you see around emergency healthcare, this governor can substantially impact it, but he will not, because he's so disconnected from reality. But any day he sees someone that has an accident, he might even donate everything he has to that person. So for this governor, how do you help him? Get him to see the consequences of his actions, because he's suffering from one degree of damage. It is called disconnected reality. If this person can see the full, so there are some people who go to work and in their mind, what they do is civil service. They come to work, they push papers. And so for them, they don't see, for instance, people who are working in the Ministry of Education. They don't see how the decisions they take in that office affects the destinies of millions of people who are passing through that defective educational system. If they can get to see it, they will write better laws. And so when they are selecting textbooks for school children, they are selecting textbooks based on I know the author of this textbook. At least if he sells 1 million copies, he will give me some things. So they are selecting textbooks based on who can give them kickbacks. They don't care about what you wrote in the textbook, whether it's relevant to these children, whether it's relevant to the 21st century skills that they need. Their decision, they just, any day you can get these people to see that their actions matter. For instance, if you are working in engineering, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Water Resources, and you don't see the women, the men every day. Okay, I recently met the chairman of a presidential committee on tax reforms and all of these things. I wanted to say something to him, but I left it. But then what I wanted to say to him was no different from what I said to a friend of mine, an associate who was just appointed a CMD of a university teaching hospital. I said, see the work you do, see that you work for the people. Don't see the administration, don't start seeing people as numbers. Because if you don't take time, you will start seeing people as numbers that you don't tend to distill. So many public servants who are in this first stage of disconnection don't see the impact of their work. They don't see how the decisions they take affect the society. If they can get to see it, if you can get to tell this hospital cleaner that you're not just a hospital cleaner, that if you don't clean this hospital quite well, someone might have an open heart surgery and just germs, because you didn't do your work well, can enter and it will render all the operation useless. And so the hospital cleaner sees the work and the full impact of the work. He's not just a mere janitor. He knows that this work affects. He's not just a mere driver. He's not. So when people, for instance, see governors, that when people stay in gridlock every day for 2 hours before they get to work, that they're not just staying in gridlocks, That you are taking 2 hours of life every day from 3,000 people every morning, and taking 2 hours of life every day because these people have to stay in traffic every day to and through work. If you see the man hours you are taking from them, you are not able to give anybody 1 second more, but you are taking 2 hours from everybody every day. And this person can now design better roads, better transport system. Because if you can get people to see the full consequences of their actions, they might stick. Especially for people who are now in that first phase of disconnected reality. Once you connect them back to the reality, they will take immediate shape. First, disconnection. Then there are people who are at the immersive reality. So the people who are at the immersive reality are usually frontliners. People we call frontliners. So for instance, if I see someone who just had an accident, the brain is open, the blood is everywhere, the hand is disjointed, my brain will shut down immediately. I will just lose balance. It will be so jarring. If as I'm thinking of it now, I can't feel it. But then a medical doctor has gone through a series of trainings that has afforded him the opportunity to stay composed when he sees someone in this kind of condition. And he needs to be composed. Because I cannot administer anything you need with that kind of mindset. The medical doctor needs to logically, not only knowing what procedure to apply, but knowing in what dose, in what manner, this suture him, give him 10 mg of this, give him this. He should know, the medical doctors, the nurses. And so, if I see people in so much pain, I am so jarred. If you, without training, see people in pool of blood, pain, you can't function. Your brain will shut down. But because of series of training, this person has been trained to function rationally, even when he sees people sitting in pain. But if you don't take time, you will cross a line that now pain becomes so painless. That people can now be crying, "Doctor, my wife is dying. Doctor, my wife is dying." And he's eating. He has seen so much dead people in his life that it does not matter again. He has seen so much pain. He's no longer, it's just, what? He doesn't understand it. And so you are crying. He does not understand your tears. You see the same thing with policemen, for instance. They have been trained. The policeman has to be accurate, or the soldier, that you have to take a split-second decision to take a life. In war front, if you don't react in 3 seconds or less, you are gone. And so for the policeman, for the civil defense, for the military, they have been so trained to take split-second decision, whether to keep a life or whether to take it. And these trainings and the years of being in the field, if they don't take time, they can't find the difference between a human being, an ant, and a chicken. Even some of us now, when we want to kill a chicken for Christmas, thank God Christmas is around the corner, we still feel that, I'm trying to take a life. But because we have killed so much mosquitoes in our lives, do we feel remorse when we kill mosquitoes? No. And some of us have even killed chickens so much so that we no longer feel remorse. If you see where they are killing, for instance, a cow, goat, there's you feel, they are taking a life. If you stay there so much, it makes no sense to you again. And so this is what happens to policemen. Because of training and years of impact staying in the front line, they can't find the difference between taking the life of a human being and taking the life of a mosquito. So for them, they are so immersed in taking life that life is now meaningless to them. And so you see policemen who have killed because of 15 naira. You see policemen who, they don't understand. So when you're shouting end police brutality, and you're talking to people who are so immersed in killing that killing is, they don't understand it. That's why policemen can kill you because of 15 naira. Kill you because of disagreement. In one of the stories we heard in Anambra NSAS panel, there is this boy who was arrested on flimsy thing, I don't know, all of those things. And they took him to Okuzusas. And I think they said he was either not the only child, the only male child of that woman. And because of bad friends, whatever, they arrested this guy. And every day the mother would try to come to SARS, bring food. Unknown to the woman, policemen have killed the child. SARS has killed the child. And they keep collecting the food. This woman will bring food. And the same policemen who killed the child of this woman will collect the food and eat. telling the woman, don't worry, we'll give it to your son. And they know that they have killed the child. And the woman was selling everything she has, trying to bring money to bribe them to bring out a dead child, which unknown to her at then was dead, had been killed in the night. The body dumped somewhere in a shallow grave, or whatever they do with the corpses. Until one day, one of the police officers says, "Madam, stop coming here. Your child is no more." But if you don't take time, not only will you kill someone's child for flimsy reasons, but then you can still be collecting food and be eating on the account of the dead child. This is what the devil can do to the heart of a public servant. Because he's so anytime you see frontliners, emergency care workers, police resources, military resources, firefighters, people who are usually in the front line. Because if civil servant, that woman that I gave you examples with before, that sits in Abuja, if she sees daily the impact of her work, the number of people that die every day because of her decision, if she sees them, if she attends the funeral of every woman that dies while giving birth because she wrote away money, the woman may have to rely on drugs to keep her sanity. Just like the armed robber will rely on drugs to keep doing what they do. Because, they see, so they have to keep relying on drugs to numb their conduct, to numb it. So if you take that civil servant who is in this disconnected reality and pull her right, this is because you wrote a memo yesterday, or I see this child is crying. That's the result of the memo you wrote yesterday. You see that man crying there, that's the result of the memo you wrote yesterday. You see that jobless person there, that's because of the investment you did not attract. You see this road here, so when they see the impact, so they are not only taking road contracts to do shoddy job, but they see the families of the people who are crying because they are burying someone who just died at the road that someone took money for. If they see this daily, they have to rely on drugs to survive. But because they sit in places where they are disconnected from reality, because presidents sitting in places where they cannot hear the cries of the people, so they don't understand it because they are disconnected. Anytime you get them to connect, they will react better. The second is a massive reality. People are so much into pain. They have buried so many people that whether you're crying or not, it doesn't matter. And the third is damaged heart. This is damaged heart. And by the way, in our subsequent classes, we will now begin to discuss the cure for a damaged heart and the care for a good heart. Damaged heart is the worst of it all, because they have been damaged and then they now cause damage. And what damages them is set of experiences or orientation. Have you asked yourself why cultism, your normal school cultism, if you want to join a cult today, it should be as easy as, I want to join a cult. They give you a small form, you fill the form, and then they should throw party for you. They should, high five or whatever greeting, and then you're now part of them. But no, they will give you an orientation, and the orientation is through beating, pain. Why do they have to go through that ritual? Because you that just said you want to join cult cannot do what they do there. So they first need to damage you before you can do damage. So that beating you, some people even die in the course of the orientation. They mercilessly subject you through inhuman, degrading situation. Why are you subjected towards this? So that they will leave a scar in your heart. And that through that bitterness, through that pain, through that trauma. And once you go through that, and it will take you months to heal, or not to heal, but for the thing to cross. And once you have that deformed heart, you are now an occultist. And so you can now kill because your heart has been deformed. If your heart has not been deformed, there are certain things they will be discussing. You say, bros, this is not good though. But if you go through the proper orientation, and the orientation comes in stages, if you go through the whole length of it, by the time you finish these stages, Killing will know. That's why when cultists are warring, they keep killing each other. For you that have not gone through orientation, you're wondering, why are these boys killing each other? Wasting, like in Boqer, there was a time they went there to a place where they have killed the person already. And then the day they are burying the person, they still came there and killed family members. They keep counter killing all of it. Will not make sense to you because your heart is still good. But these guys go through things that damage their hearts before they can now become cultists. And so your politicians are damaged. The process of elections in many countries is a damaging problem, most especially in Nigeria. That you will see a person who says, oh, I want to be in politics to help. And he goes through elections where even reverend fathers, reverend sisters, pastors, everybody you greet good morning wants to extort you, wants to take money from you. You see high-level betrayals, high-level backstabbing. People, the things they go through before they acquire political office is a damaging experience. That by the time they get to the public office, this person's heart is so damaged. I'll give you another instance. I'll still use cultism. Now let's move cultism to a higher realm. That's occultism now. The people who do sacrifices and all of those things. By the time they tell you, oh, bring chicken, we want to do a sacrifice, bring this, bring that. Look, if they wanted chicken, they could have killed any random chicken. They say, bring bring virgins. I hope we know that these things happen. At least we know that there are syndicates that do ritual killings. At least we know that young boys have gone into that using their Okite, using their Yahoo Plus and all of those things. So we know that these things are true. But look, they are not so much so interested in the chicken that you're bringing. And I'll tell you what they're interested in. Just keep following. They're not interested in the ram. Because they will start with chicken, with pigeon, with things. And then they can start, telling you, bring this, you can't bring it, give us money, let us do for you. If you keep following that line, where you will end up is where you will now start bringing your loved ones. And so for the person who is willing to sacrifice another human being to make money, the heart has been damaged. So someone comes, I need money, I'm in poverty, I need money, and they say, bring your mother. And the person gets so much so to the point of killing his or her mother to make money. What do you think happens to the heart of that person? And so it's not your mother that they need. What they want is your heart, to damage it, to leave a scar. Because they could have still killed your mother either ways. If they wanted a woman, they would have gone anywhere to randomly kill people. People randomly die in accidents. If they wanted cows, they can just kill random. They are looking for the heart. And that's why they subject them through rituals that will damage their heart. Bring your loved one. They subject you through pain. And by the time you go through this pain, your heart is damaged. And when this heart is damaged, for instance, the politician that has been betrayed, battered, sold his properties, he has worked for 40 years of his life, accumulated wealth, and has sold everything he has just to get into political office. By the time he finishes the process, from the time he says, I want to serve the people, to the time he now gets the opportunity to serve the people, his heart is permanently damaged. That he's now looking at, how can I recoup my investment? So even if he sees the full impact of his work, he can't be changed. Even when he sees women dying while giving birth, no. The heart is already, because someone that killed his mother to get into political office, what else are you telling him? Is he your cry? Meanwhile, as you are sitting there, he is in pain, because occultism will always leave them in permanent pain. The kind of sacrifices, the kind of rituals they go through leaves them in permanent pain. Is a mind-bending process. The elections are mind-bending for many countries. You can't go there and come out the same. Even people who lost are even more wicked. They might still be smiling, putting on perfumed clothes, hugging market women. But look, they know that their hearts. That's why you see the men have dealt with politicians at very elite level. A lot of them don't send the masses. So when you see them buying keke, they are not doing it because they love you. It's not out of love. They are just doing it as something that has to be done for them to acquire or retain political power. And so someone who goes through a process that damages his heart for him to acquire power, what do you then think he wants to do with the power? Civil service recruitment. Civil service recruitment. Someone who they tell, bring this, bring that, come and sleep around, do this for you to get promotion. So someone who had to humiliate him or herself to get a job. And after sleeping around to get and sustain a job, you then tell him or her, you know this job, you will use it to serve the people. What? So the process of getting to a position in public service is as important as the position, because the process can either damage your heart or give you a permanent scar that it will take the grace of God for you to recover. I hope you guys are now seeing what is wrong with your public servants. Disconnected reality, immersive reality, and damaged hearts. Some people have seen things, and let's talk quickly about experiences. Experiences can totally deform a man. Some people have become lawmakers. Lawmakers, state lawmakers, and they tell you, boy, no, they do good man here. Oh, they gave you 30 million for constituency project, and you used all of them. Did you see Chike? He's now in the village. They will show you former politicians who cannot afford to change the tires of their cars. And then you will now start grabbing. And so let's talk about orientation. Lastly, on this class. This heart of public servants, we have not exhausted it. I think we have to do a 5-part series before we can exhaust what we have in public service. In just public service. So this is the second series. We will continue, because I just did not even scratch the surface of what I intend to discuss today. But it's already 1 hour. And so I'll try to take questions and summarize this class. I will implore you to come to the next class. Keep coming to these classes. You will learn things. Orientation is important in everything you do. And that's why anytime you enter into any office, there is an unwritten rule, is an unwritten code. In any civil service establishment, any government, people start telling you this is how. Okay, for instance, I call orientation as a software. Any system that you're using, it has a software on which the superstructure is built. So if you go to Lagos, for instance, and you see people aggressive, somebody is not going anywhere, but they can't yield way for you. Like Lagos drivers, it's just as if everybody is in a hypersonic crazy mode. It's as a result of experience. Maybe the first months you come into Lagos, you're doing gentleman, and because of experiences, because of what people say, they say this is Lagos, so shine your eyes, so they don't do dog. If those are informal orientations, because without that orientation, you can't function in the madness. So your heart has to be oriented, properly attuned to madness. And now you that came to Lagos, you didn't know, you were just a normal person. Today you are now driving in Lagos. You can't give way because you want to take your rights. You want to, everybody is fighting for their rights. So there's an orientation, there's a software that informs that outward manifestation. So when you see in public service, when people come in, there is this set of informal orientation. This is how the office culture is. This is what to do. This is expected reward. This is how. Don't be doing all this your holy wage. Don't be doing all this your holy ho. Don't be doing. Those are the soft orientation. So why is the devil? Who orients? Who is the person that conducts orientation for Nigeria's public servants? If you see the outcome of their service, you now know who the course master is. Jesus says, for your father, the devil, is a murderer from day one, and you are doing what just exactly like him in John chapter 3, or is it John chapter 5? So when you see the outcome of a public service, you will see the orientation. So for instance, there is this orientation that tells a public servant that acquiring money that you don't need is better than having school children go to school. It's an orientation. They don't know where it came from, but they are running. It's a software. It runs in your public service. It runs in your civil service. It runs in the political marketplace. It runs in the judiciary. Look, okay, you're a judge, you're retiring in 5 years. Collect money and give judgments. Who sent? All this is your thing you are doing. And that's how your judges dispense judgment. They carry it on the tree. They are hawking judgments now. And so when you see the outcome of any system, you don't have to even see, you see the software they are running. So it's a very corrupted software. And what we're doing at the Boqer School of Government is to try to write a new code, to try to write a new law, to try to give people a new orientation, so that when all the people here are public servants by the first definition of public servants, and some now will now go into that specialized or administrative view of public service, so that when you get there, you now see that the power you execute as a public servant is not your power, it's a delegated power from God. Because God instituted public service for his administrative purposes. He wants to reach out to school children. That's why he created the Ministry of Education. He wants to reach out to people. People must move around. That's why they have Ministry of Transport. That's why they have Ministry of the Economy. That's why they have Ministry of Agriculture. So if you're in any ministry, appointed, elected, whatever, it is God's function that you're executing. A lawmaker is executing God's function, and then you can refer back to either our first or second class to find full fleshed out of this. And so if you're exercising God's function, then your orientation should come also from him. If it does not, the devil can trap you. If he misses you by disconnecting you from the impact of your actions, he will put you right in front of your actions that you may not. Every day you are seeing people dying as a result of what you're doing, but he can't affect you. Other times he will walk you through experiences, numbing experiences. When we say that someone has become wicked, something happened to a wicked man. And so before you kill it, something must die in a man before he takes another life. So when you see politicians, civil servants wreaking heart damage, something must really die in that heart. Something must die. So you need to be damaged to do damage. Like, let me use relationships for instance. When you see someone whose heart has been broken, watch out the person. He or she, if you don't take your time, you now become a tool for breaking people's hearts. If you see people who have deformed parentage, watch them. If they don't take their time, they will deform their children. What that thing you complain that your parents did to you, without you knowing, you will still do it to your children, because it damaged man. You need to damage the man before he can do damage. So before the devil can damage any society, he will first damage the heart of the public servants. And why is the devil interested in the public servants? I will end with this so that we can take questions. If a society is functioning well, and there is a deviant into society, there is so much societal resilience that the deviants can be taken care of. If a society is functioning well by godly design, and someone decides to steal, to kill, to do any of those things, the system is so much designed that it can take care of that deviant. And so if the devil gets any Mr. Okeke to steal, the law will catch up with you. You won't do it for too long. If you do this, you won't do it for too long. And so, not that you would run out of people who want to steal. People will still want to test, because there are people who like living on the edge. But then there is a system to protect them. But when the devil is really interested in destroying the society, he will target the public servants in that society. And so, if he targets out of 2 million people, he targets 1,000 people and makes them thieves. In a resilient society, we can find those 1,000 people and we will know where we put them. But then he will now target the judges in that system. He will target the lawmakers in that system. He will target the kings or the executive in that system. And so when he takes the heart of the public servants, the people who are now supposed to be the administrative, the people who are now supposed to take care of those killers, are now killers themselves. You see the police. The people who are supposed to protect you are now killers themselves. You will actually need protection from them. The government, which is supposed to do this for you, people need to protect you from your own government. The judges, who is supposed to be the last hope of the common man, do we say about what? So if the devil is really interested in any society, regardless of how much, it is the public servants he will target. And once the heart of the public servants is gotten, watch out the society, give it 10 years, it will unravel. And so that's why the devil goes the whole length. He can damage any bricklayer, anybody. Their impact, like I mentioned in the introductory class, the impact of our activities on the polity is not equal. If I sneeze today, Nigeria may not exactly catch cold, depending. If the president sneezes, Nigeria can catch cold. There are some countries like Zambia. If anything happens in Zambia, well, if anything happens, there are economies that when they go into recession, the whole world will join them or will at least feel the impact. Like Cameroon, if Cameroon is fighting a civil war, how does it affect the global scheme of things? But Russia and Ukraine are fighting, and it's affecting commodity prices in Nigeria. You see that nations in that hierarchy are more important than you. That is how much so with individuals. So a grade 1 civil, I don't even know how they grade civil servants, but a cleaner may do something. It is still impactful, but it will not be as impactful or as damaging as when the CEO of that organization does the thing. So if a cleaner decides to steal, how much so can you steal as a cleaner? How much is available for a cleaner to steal? But if you are the CEO, you now see the thing. That if God makes you the governor of Anambra State, he puts the responsibility of 6.2 million people in your hands. And you can decide how many people that will die from preventable healthcare issues, how many people known government will kidnap because you took away the security votes, how many people will turn out deviant in society because you didn't put in enough money into the education, how many parents will go starve their children to death because you didn't put enough, design the economy while your monetary and economic policies and fiscal policies are whack. So you see, and it is God's responsibility. He gives it to people freely. And usually what Nigerians want is anytime a politician lies, God will come and kill that politician. No, that's not God's strategy at all. We've discussed this in one of our classes. That's not God's strategy. God's strategy is to, because even you, it is not every day you lie that God kills you. If that is the case, then anytime you want to commit any sin, a hammer will fall from heaven and you will die immediately. Why do we want this for? So God delays his judgment. And because he delays his judgment, a lot of people tend to do what they want. And so, because of the impact the governor has, the governor in any given state has more impact or compared to any other person in the state. Then you have influencers too. They have different levels of influence. So depending on your level of influence, you can impact the system. So if you want to damage the system, you target the hearts of the most influential set of people in that given system. And so once you damage these people's hearts through disconnected reality, a massive reality, and damaged hearts, then they can now become instruments of damage. So that's where we will draw the curtain on this iteration of Boqer School of Business. I will now invite some of us here to ask questions, contributions, and we will react to those before we call it a day. But this is not the last in the public service at the heart of a public servant. I'll still go further. If a heart has been damaged, how do we cure? If a heart is good, how do we protect it? So, like I said, this class, if the Lord permits, might go into the 5th series of this particular topic before we move on, or we can choose to move on to other topics and come back to the heart of the public servant as the Lord leads. So feel free to please raise your hands and make your contributions.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, sir, for today's teaching. This is quite an enlightenment for me. Like, I've not seen this picture before. I've not seen this way before. Now I'm able to know the reason that the things that are happening in the government system, and especially the people that propose to be good leaders, and when they get into government, all of a sudden, or by the time they get to power, they begin to act opposite. So initially, there is this superstitious belief that is when they get there that they're being manipulated or something. Now I understand the technicality of the manipulation, how it actually happens.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Coco. Yes, a damaged heart will do damage. Okay, CJ, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Chima. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would say it's a pleasure to be here. I consider it more a privilege, actually, to sit under your feet, Chima, to learn things about public service, governance, and leadership in general. Quite a lot of time when we talk about leadership in Nigeria, most people think and talk with respect to politics. That's why we are more often than not interested in who is in power. Is it my cousin or my relative? But when conversations like this, people start thinking more about governance. How does, the decisions, the signatures of whoever is in power, irrespective of ethnic group, language, culture, tribe, how does that signature he appends on a piece of paper affect the life of the Okada rider, the market woman, and I think this is one of the ways we can actualize such agenda. But my question, Chima, is with respect to one of the three components you discussed, the disconnected reality. I want to understand, because at what point do you think people in public service become disconnected from the existing realities? Let me make it clearer. In the Catholic Church, we have a significance of priesthood, and the priest, of course, is seen as one who leads the flock, who leads the shepherd. So during Mass, I don't know if there are Catholics here, so I'm just going to use my experience, my reality to drive the message home. The priest proceeds from the back of the church, literally towards the altar before he begins the Mass. So when we were children, we were taught that the essence of that, the implication of that, is just to show that a priest is taken among the people. So he goes where everybody is, passes everybody, and then proceeds to the altar from where he ministers. So that's actualization. I have been among you, and now I am up here representing someone who is, more powerful, more superior than all of us. And I think in the life of public and post servants, that reality is similar. Nobody is born a civil servant. Nobody becomes a leader from birth. People become leaders when they are either appointed, elected, or something. So I am just trying to understand. These people have been part of that reality, and then all of a sudden they become disconnected from this same reality. How do we reconcile these two seemingly conflicting positions? Thank you.
Thank you so much, my dear brother. You started by saying that you consider it it's a pleasure and then a privilege for you to be here. It's also my privilege to have someone like you of your stature and your reputation. I've worked with you briefly on some projects, and I can vouch the kind of person you are. And I consider it humbling that you are part of the platform here, and that you're willing to be I won't say it's not a teacher-student relationship. It's just where we come to discuss issues, right? And that you're here. So your presence here adds immense color, and it's quite a privilege that you're on the class. So thank you so much for that. And before I answer your question, permit me to use 1 or 2 minutes to react to Coco, who spoke earlier. So Coco said that he doesn't even know the techniques through which, and that some of the things we discussed here, he was hearing them for the first time. So yes, and to double down on one of the points, especially the one you raised, when you see serial rapists, for instance, if you hear their stories, there was a time something snapped. They usually have an experience that puts them in bondage, and because of that, they tend to enjoy when others are crying. So if you want to have normal human relationships with them, they know they don't enjoy it. They only enjoy when someone is crying, saying, "Leave me." It's an heroin, something snapped. So before they can do damage, first of all, they need to be damaged. So when you also see terrorists, for instance, if you see it in movies, they start telling their kids to kill, or maybe first they start killing before their kids. So some of them at 8 years, 5 years, they're exposed to people. And so when this child, the first time he sees his parents or his mentors kill, he feels remorse, he feels something. By the time he stays in that terrorist camp for 1 year, 2 years, this boy has been so damaged that he can now kill for fun. If you see the same thing with criminals, armed robbers, they don't start off as, nobody was born a killer. It's usually an experience, and the first time they do it, they have this remorse. Okay, let me use something that we can all relate to. If there is a particular weakness or sin that you usually indulge in, and you've been trained not to do that, and you acquired it maybe at some point towards your adulthood, or you acquired the habit as a teenager. The first time you did it, for instance, if it is girls who are now into licentious lifestyle, this first time they slept around, they felt bad. They enjoyed the experience, but they felt remorse. The second time, they felt, all of a sudden, they are now comfortable in that iniquity. So that is what this kind of thing does. That people have to be damaged until they are comfortable with not being damaged. And not only are they now comfortable with being damaged, they are now tools to cause damage. That's one. And that point needs to be elucidated. So you see that the damaged politicians can only damage the society. And the question from CJ is important. At what point do people disconnect from reality? Sometimes I say that they don't even connect in the first place. And I'll give you reasons. I was at the National Assembly today. I have discussed this with my associates because a lot of the work I do, and this is not to go into unnecessary self-praise. In fact, I will limit it now. Two things. The last time I was in Anambra, I called someone I know. I said, I want to see the SSG. He says, give me minutes. He called me back, not in the office, but I'll check anytime he comes, I'll tell you. Then the SSG comes. Say, oh, he's in the office now, come. I came in before 15-20 minutes. The SSG walked out with a visitor. Here am I in his presence. Mr. SSG, good afternoon. My name is Chima. I am here to follow up on Anambra and SAS. And we just discussed, he gave me updates on the SAS. I tried to push a lot of those things. Now, I have never been abused by SAS. I don't know anybody who's abused. I just had people's stories and I go there to engage. I was at the National Assembly today. And I'm at the National Assembly because of public policy issues affecting Nigeria. And one of the lawmakers that I went to meet is Chairman House Committee. Because this is a public platform, I'll cut this out before posting to the public. And everybody that was waiting for this man was carrying envelope, CV. I applied for federal job. I did this. I did that. I did this. I did the other. I did the other. I need this. I need money. They are all coming to need, take. Me, myself. And it occurred to me that I was only the person there that was not coming for myself. I took note of it. And the last time I went to see the SSG, I didn't ask him for money. I didn't say, oh, SSG, you know that I offer this kind of services. No, it was for the public. And this is usually because this is where it starts. What is your motive? What are you looking for in public service? If it is money, you're already at the point where you can be easily compromised. So a lot of people are in public service for sustenance or subsistent living. And that's why Jesus would tell you, do not care for what you will eat, what you will drink, what you will wear. He says, for these are what the Gentiles pursue. Say, your father knows that you have need of it. My father knows that I have need. So if people don't enter public service with this orientation, that they are there for what they will eat, what to drink, they are only pursuing what they want because that is what they want. That is what took them to public service. But secondly, sometimes you don't blame people so much so because they don't know better. Hardly will you find any school. That's why God is pioneering something with us. And he's not just doing with us, he's doing it in some other pockets or places. And very soon, some of the ideas we're discussing here will become mainstream. That people will know that public service is actually not serving the public. You are serving God. It is God that you are serving. It is God that gives you the power. God says, okay, take care of the children. Take care of this for me. Take care of that for me. These ideas will someday become mainstream. But until then, you don't have a system that educates. Let me give an instance. I have a friend. I think she's here. Okay, she's not here. Who works with, and before she started working there, There are stories of their previous MD who, this body is supposed to attract foreign investors or local investors into Anambra State. And so when you come there, they are supposed to help you facilitate your registration with different government entities. If you needed land from the government, if you needed to do PPP work from the government, these are the people who are responsible for packaging it, doing everything and helping you secure your investments in the state. But the former or the last two, whatever, the person that was there before, the stories we heard of him was that if you come in with your business ideas, you're coming with investors from UK or India, whatever, or you yourself, you have money to invest, he will now start asking you from the side, personally, that they want to take 10% or 15% of the company. If you refuse to give them 15% of the company or whatever bribe they demand from you, no matter how brilliant the idea is, it has died. And so you are telling them this job, this idea is going to create 3,000 jobs in Anambra. They are not interested. They are interested in their bottom line, the money. And so this person does not see, has never even seen it for once, that there is a woman who will become a cleaner in this company. Because of this company, this woman's child will go to school and will not turn out a deviant in the society tomorrow. So he sees himself, I'm just a public servant, this is workshop, where you work is where you shop. I think that's what they say. And so he sees it as a workshop. So he doesn't see that through him, God can bring jobs to 5,000 people. Through what you do in that office, 5,000 people can stay out of jobs. So if this person knows that, look, God has you here simply because through your ministry, he will give jobs to people. And so there are people that will be praying, God, give me a job, give me a job. And God will use your being in that ministry, that government agency, to answer their prayers. He will not come down from heaven and give people jobs. He has put you in a system of administration to dispense jobs to his people. That is why you are there. And now he's giving job because there are parents who are tied to that investment, whose children are tied to that investment. There are mothers that, my heart almost broke. I was covering a free medical outreach for a former lawmaker. And I covered 3 episodes of that program, which means every year he does it. And so every year he brings in doctors from, wherever, and they perform free surgical, free medical, free everything. And there was this particular woman. In the first year that I covered it, one of her child, I think it was hernia or I can't remember, but it was a surgery. They had to open the stomach to take out the thing. And this thing was happening to her 4 children. And then in the second year, she was privileged to have her 2 kids. So this is 3 kids. And so when one of the doctors was asking her, Madam, didn't you know that this child had this issue? He said, I know, but I don't have money. Now, I asked how much was the procedure then. The procedure then in a normal hospital would have cost them 180,000 to take out the thing, at the average. And he needs shit for 3 or 4 children. And so this woman every day he wakes up, he sees the child dying instrumentally. But because of 180,000, she cannot, her and the husband cannot take care of this child. And they are dying instrumentally. And they are praying to God every day. And they're asking God, help. But someone is sitting in an office where if this investment comes, this woman can be employed in that firm. And because of this employment, this woman's child that is suffering from will no longer die of preventable healthcare issues. So if this person is not properly trained, that is why companies give you orientation before you join companies. You don't see people get this orientation when they join public service. They only tell you this is how to press computer, Ctrl A, this is how to push files, you take the file from the office of the chief of staff, you take it to there. This is the only orientation you get. They don't see the full impact. They are not intentionally trained. So they can teach you how to do the job, what to do. Gateman, how to open the gate. Secretary, how to type. Typist, they can teach those, the functional aspect of the job. But the core substance, the importance or the purpose of this job, nobody gets the time to teach it. I've not seen anybody teaching it. If they exist, I don't know. They may, but many people I've met says, this is the first time I'm hearing some of the things you're saying. And so because of that lack of orientation, if people don't have this orientation, for instance, the priest, before they make him a priest, they indoctrinate him for several, not indoctrination, they train him for several years to tell him, look, you were picked among the people. And to remind you that you were picked among the people, every day you start the mass from behind. But now, once you cross the people, you're looking at them, you are no longer part of them. You are now representing a transcendent being. Nobody tells civil servants this. They just tell them, oh, you're now appointed the Commissioner of Health. Nobody tells them you are now an extension of God's healing hands to the state. So because of that, many people never really connect. Some people don't even see. They just see, oh, I am here for 8 years, and I'm a civil servant. I'm now in level 12. I can get to level 16. Oh, the other person is in level 16. Their kids are studying in private university. I don't have, so that's so. I think you will blame it at the lack of orientation. And finally, on this orientation, the church does not teach this about public service. What the church teaches, and which is a proper tool of God's orientation, the church is teaching, don't steal. If you steal, you will go to hellfire. But people are now, hellfire is in the future. And many people cannot think futuristic. And so, yes, on Sunday, they will come and confess their sins. On Monday, they are stealing public funds. And then, even when they get to office to confess on Sunday, they are not confessing stealing public funds. It's part of office culture. Because, anyway, when we get to that, we may do a course called Degreasing the Nigerian society. Because this dichotomy, people tend to see that their religious life, their church life is different from their work life. So that's why they are a different person on Sunday and another on Monday. No, you are one person. You are not disconnected from your work. Your work is actually your service to God. If you're a medical doctor, you can't be a medical doctor and then say, oh, I'm a Christian. No, you are a Christian as a medical doctor. That's your field of medicine, is where you serve God. Not in the pulpit, not in the altar. You're not a priest. So the same way a priest serves at the altar, that is how you are now a high priest in the church or in the field of medicine. You are a high priest in the marketplace. You are a high priest in the political arena. So if the people don't know this, how else do you want them to function? The only knowledge available to them is dog eat dog. This is public service, so you don't do it. This is not your father's business. Actually, it's your father's business. This is the business of your Father in heaven. If we don't teach this, the devil will teach them that it's not their father's business. If you die here today, they will replace you tomorrow. No, do pass yourself. No, you holy pass. Just do what others are doing. This is the orientation people get. And so Boqer School of Government, and you that has had this now, it is now your responsibility to begin to train people in your sphere of influence that, look, this is the proper orientation. If you don't have this proper orientation, you are a candidate for disconnected reality, a masked reality, or a damaged heart. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if that answers your question, my dear brother CJ.
Oh yeah, you did a very good justice to the question, and the more you speak, the more I realize that there are a lot of work to be done in the, like I used to emphasize, governance aspect of Nigerian leadership, and I hope through series like this and more, we will get there. I really hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, my brother. The journey of 1,000 miles starts from the first step. I'm no longer interested in this present crop of leaders. I think they have been damaged, and some of them irreparably. And so we're looking at some of us who are young, who will soon become and occupy positions of responsibility. Like Haruna is here, Godson is here, you are here, Coco is here, Livingstone is here. So and many more people. This platform and other platforms that God is raising for this kind of teaching will become mainstream. That's how we can educate the next level of leaders with intention and telling them, look, leadership is about service to God and humanity. Once you take God and humanity out of the equation, there's nothing left of leadership. If your heart is damaged or not properly attuned, whatever any other thing you have is a disadvantage. If the heart of a public servant is damaged, but that person is brilliant, he will use his brilliance to steal and dazzle. If a man is eloquent, but his heart is damaged, he will use his eloquence like Nnamdi Kanu. If your heart is damaged and you are sophisticated, there are people that can steal for Africa. They are not going to steal like Rochas Okorocha that draws money directly from the government account to his private account. These are people who know technicalities of how to hide money. And no matter how good you are as an accountant, difficult for you to trace their stealings. This is what intelligent people who has heart has been damaged can do. So thank you so much for staying and coming around. And like, through you and through this platform and through others that God will raise, these ideas will become mainstream, especially to redirect the next crop of public servants and the next crop of civil servants.
First, I must say that I came with much expectation and satisfying having what I've learned. It's always eye-opening every topic, and I'm happy. And but I think the last thing you said actually kind of answered the question I had in mind, because I was like, so if most of the public servants are damaged, what do we do? There is a development, or then you talk about, educating the next crop of leaders. But then my own concern is that those damaged people are producing children that are damaged, and are also ensuring that their children enter into a state of power or state of authority. Is there anything one can do to ensure that as we educate the next crop of leaders, that they are able to, find their place in the society and dispense God's service to the society? That is one part. And then second part is I'm looking at how soon can we make this information more available to people. Because actually, I can sit under this class in the next 3-4 hours and enjoy everything. But can I call it the Gen Z generation we have now? They have short attention span, and they may not be able to learn for 1 hour stretch. The only way we can package it. There's this movie I saw recently, John one India movie. It kind of explains how these things work and how the government decisions of people in government affect the masses and stuff like that in a movie. But then I think people just watch the movie and enjoy it and don't get the message. I don't know. That's my own thing. But I still feel that things like that may be things or capsules that can be used to deliver the message to this generation of kids who are supposed to be the leaders. So those are my two thoughts. I don't know what you can say on that.
Oh, thank you so much, Livingstone. It's so nice to have you here. And then your questions. First is, yes, as we are working hard to train the next generation of leaders in righteousness, also the other side is working hard to damage as more people as they can so that they can inflict damage. And yes, we can still pull back some of the damage. Like in one of our course iterations of this class, we will teach the cure for a damaged heart. And you see that a damaged heart can indeed be recovered if they want to be cured. And right, so we'll teach that. And part of the vision the Lord has graciously given us, and this will happen, and if it happens, we know that because we are preparing for it, is that very soon we will start going for trainings for government functionaries, trainings for public servants, trainings. We're doing a lot of these things. And then when we come there, we may not even quote one scripture, but everything, like when I go to TV to do my presentations, you won't see me quoting scriptures for them, but everything I say there is scriptural. And I can give you Bible quotation for everything I say in the Bible. So that's where I draw the core concept of my work. But then, because you're speaking to a broad base of people who may not necessarily believe in God the way you do, so you find ways to tell them what you want to tell them without. So I am quoting scriptures here because this is a purely religious school teaching biblical principles and concepts. So yes, God has told us that He will open pathways to us to begin influencing public servants at their orientation. I have already seen it where judges were having their annual retreats and Boqer School of Government is there as one of the facilitators. So we've seen this and we're preparing for this. That's why we are developing our course curricula, our course content. We are working hard, modernizing, researching, doing all we can, preparing for that time. It may not happen in 1 year or 2, it may happen, but then we know that this future is coming and we're prepared for that. So that when that time comes, Even if it is a 10%, 20% we're able to catch from the damaged people, then we can, do well. But then we have a mandate to train the next generation. That's that on that. So then about the short attention span of it, or how do we make these things more available to people? And we're just starting with limited resources. And we will have to bank on people here. If you've learned something from this, you might share our link, you might like our Facebook page, you might comment on it so that you might reshare it, you might retweet, or you might even, if you know people who should be part of this, maybe we'll have this meeting, God willing, next Tuesday by 9 p.m. And so when we share the invite, you can just pick it and say, these are 5 people in my sphere of influence that I think will benefit from this class. You might just share the 5 to the 5 or to the 3. So the people here can help bring in others who are like minds, who are also on their pathway to somewhere and who need the kind of things we are teaching here. Or you can take our recorded material and share with them. And for short attention span, there is something I'm working on in my own private Africa's Morning and Chima Christian brand. So what I do is when I go to TV presentations, sometimes it's an hour interview, right? So I push that hour interview to my Facebook and YouTube and share the link. So it's a long form content. Anybody who wants the long form content can engage it. But then over time, I break it down into 1 minute clip, 2 minute clip, 3 minute clip, 4 minute clips. That's, just one idea. I take it, I just say what I want to say in and out, 1 minute, 2 minutes, sometimes 4 minutes, but not exceeding 5 or 6. And then I begin now that 1 hour content. I can derive 7 or 8 short form contents from it and post. And before you know it, in less than 1 week, you have watched my 1 hour video without even you knowing. And so if God gives us more resources, and I don't even share as much as I do, because sometimes in a week, I grant like 3 to 4 interviews. That's 4 hours of work. And I can't even share them because I don't have the time to edit and all of those things. And then even if I have the time to edit, I sometimes sympathize with my WhatsApp audience, because WhatsApp is my primary audience. And because WhatsApp is not like Facebook where you can post as often as you like, sometimes I try to limit my post to 1 or 2 a day, or at most 3 times a day, so that people don't get so bugged with my content. And so within that, I've said this to say to you that at some point, Africa's Money, and we're doing this already, Boqer School is trying to, these things we are doing here, we will distill 5 minutes, put it, make a caption around it and put it out, so that people who are not able to listen to 1 hour content can now watch our reels, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then if they're interested, they can now come to the long form content. So the long form content, we'll have to further break it down to short form content for people who have a short attention span, like you said. But then on publicity, if God keeps giving us the resources, we might, start promoting our page on social media. But now I'm relying on my primary WhatsApp audience, Twitter audience, Facebook audience to draw attention to what we are doing. But if it is the Lord's work and we are consistent at it, He will know how to announce it at His own time. We are just 8 here, but the 8 is not just. Sorry, I used just. It's not just. It's a huge number to me, because this is the 5th iteration of the class. So I'm already seeing the 50th class, the 60th class, the 100th class. So within that framework, if we stay consistent and do this for 100 weeks, 50 weeks, you will see, for instance, the kind of little recognition I'm getting in Nigeria today is as a consistent 9 years of work. What I do today, my public policy analysis, has been for 9 years, since 2015, without fail, consistent. And so if we're consistent at this Boqer School, it might even be for a shorter period of time, and the Lord might choose to give it wings and it will fly, and then it will get more traction. We'll be invited to speak at bigger platforms where we can, elucidate this to a bigger audience. But for now, we're here and we're relying on you helping us to propagate this thing. And we're not doing this to trend. We're not doing this so that people will know us. That's why if you see some of the things I write, I don't write salacious headlines so that I can trend. Anytime I'm talking because there is something that needs to be said. Anytime I'm intervening, that's why I'm here in Boqer School. It's not so that people will know me so that I become popular. Like I mentioned to you, you must ask yourself, what are you looking for in the first place? If what you're looking for is popularity, then you're already a candidate that the devil can mess up with anything. because you will now start saying anything that can make you popular. And I see this with social media influencers a lot. That at the end, they start out, even with Reverend Fathers. Like I was telling somebody, I said, watch this Reverend Father. He will self-destruct. Because what he's looking for is popularity. So when you are looking for popularity and you are in an influencer, the first thing you will do is you will start out leading your audience. And very soon you will find out things that you will say, it will trend. You find out things that you will write, people will retweet it. And then you start giving the audience what they want to hear. Eventually, the audience will start leading you. And this person no longer has an opinion of his own. What he's saying is what the people want to hear. And so you started out leading the people. And before you close your eyes and open it, because you're looking for popularity, the people are now leading you. So you are a voice, yes, but your voice is not making any impact. Because at most, you are telling people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. So we're not doing this for popularity. The Lord has given us a mandate, and it's a huge, huge mandate. And so when we see Africa's morning is at hand, there's something He has shown us about Africa's morning. And this platform is one of the platforms that is going to help give birth to that vision. So please contribute your quota in making this. Invite your friends, share our material, not so that anybody will trend. And this will not be only me here. Some of us here will at some point, if we want, become, platform guests, share some of the things, because the Lord will start teaching. So as I know this, there are a lot of things that Gossin knows, Haruna knows, Coco knows, CJ, that will cast. So this is the leadership of Boqer School. So at some point, all of us, depending on our level of availability, will have the platform to start dispensing some of the wisdom that the Lord has graciously given to us in our own respective fields through this platform. So I'll invite you to help at this stage of the building block. So that will be it from me, Livingstone Obueshi. Let's take one more question before we call it a day, or comment. Okay, well done, CC. None from me at this point. Haruna, thank you so much, Haruna. And Gossin says, I love this wholeheartedly. So thank you so much. In the absence of any further comments, I will thank each and every one of us for coming. My dear brother CJ, Godson, Haruna, Coco, Livingstone, and the others whose network was unstable, that you participated in this Boqer School of Government. A lot of people, in fact, the ignorance is mostly with Christians. That Christians don't know that God is interested in government and in governance. Actually, it is God that created government systems and governance systems because He is interested in an ordered society. If you look through the Bible, God said more about judicial systems than He said about healing. But today you have a lot of Africans who know the God that heals my diseases, but they don't know what God says about the judiciary. In the New Testament, God said more about judicial systems. In fact, about all the forms of government, the one He was always emphasizing is the judicial system. So one day we'll look at judiciary from God's perspective. So people don't know that God is interested. And these things are in your scriptures. I'm not reading any other text. It's the scriptures. In the Old Testament, in the New Testament, Jesus is interested in this. The last question the disciples of Jesus Christ asked Him is, will you at this point restore the kingdom to Israel? And He says to them, it is not left for you to know the time the Father has appointed, but you shall receive power after the Holy Ghost has come upon you, and you will be witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea, and throughout the end of the universe. And so Jesus was interested in their heart, because the territory that they lost, Israel, they went into exile. People captured them. People started leading them because of their heart condition. Because it was as a result of the disobedience that they lost the kingdom. And so Jesus was now interested in fixing the heart. That if you get the heart, you have gotten the society. Like I said in one of the days, any law that is not written in the heart of man has not started. Because man, depending on his level of intelligence, will find intelligent ways to circumvent that law. So if you don't write that law in the heart of any man, you have not started. Either the man will break the law and break himself against the law, or he will find ways to circumvent that law. So, well, that's the topic for another day. But what I'm saying is that this platform is dedicated solely to drawing out biblical principles for modern day governance, government, and political systems. It has modern day applications. There is something the Lord is saying about Nigeria's economy. He's interested. Anybody who thinks that God wants this hyperinflation is not being honest. But we have to painstakingly draw it out, and we have drawn it out by the mercies of God, and we'll begin to teach these things because God runs economies of nations. Yes, and He's interested in running our own, and there are biblical strategies. If not, we will keep running our quasi-economic policies that will only end us up in the dungeon. So my point is to encourage each and every one of us to take it as a point of duty to keep participating and to share our materials, and that Africa's morning, of course, is at hand.